They say you don't choose a home chooses you. When I found the brownstone on 12th Street, it felt like I won the lottery. High ceilings, original crown molding, and a price tag that felt like a mistake. I'm a freelance architect, so I have an eye for detail. I noticed the mirrors immediately. They were built into the walls of the master bedroom. Massive, silver-backed slabs of glass framed in dark, swirling mahogany. The landlord told me they were original to the building, dating back to the late 1800s. I loved them at first. They made the room feel infinite, doubling the space and catching the amber glow of the streetlights outside. But within the first week, the atmosphere changed. The air in the bedroom always felt 5 degrees colder than the rest of the apartment. It was a heavy, stagnant cold, the kind that makes you want to keep your back to the wall. Every time I walked past those mirrors, I felt a prickle of static on my skin. It was that primal instinct, the feeling of a gaze lingering on the back of your neck when you know you're alone. I chalked it up to the stress of the move, the creaks of an old building settling into its bones. I didn't realize the house wasn't just settling, it was watching. It happened on a Tuesday. I was leaning over the sink in the ensuite, which shared a glass partition with the bedroom mirrors. I was brushing my teeth, staring blankly at my own eyes, lost in a mental checklist for work. I spat into the sink and looked up to grab a towel. I stopped, my reflection still leaning forward. For a fraction of a second, maybe half a heartbeat, the man in the glass didn't move. He stayed there, hunched over, staring at the porcelain. Then, with a jerky, unnatural fluidness, he snapped upright to match my posture. My heart did a sharp, painful kick against my ribs. I froze. I blinked slowly. The reflection blinked back, perfectly in sync. I raised my left hand, he raised his right. I touched my cheek, he did the same. I laughed it off, a nervous, dry sound that echoed too loudly in the tiled room. Sleep deprivation, I whispered. I'd been pulling 12-hour shifts. The brain plays tricks when it's tired. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, facing away from the mirrors, but I could feel them. They felt like open doors. I kept thinking about that split-second delay. It wasn't just a lag. It felt like hesitation, like the person on the other side had forgotten his cue. By Friday, I stopped using the bedroom mirrors entirely. I draped a bed sheet over the largest one, but I woke up the next morning to find the sheet neatly folded on the floor. I hadn't moved it. I decided to test it. I stood 3 feet away from the glass, perfectly still. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I stared at the reflection of my chest, watching it rise and fall. Then I stopped. I held my breath until my lungs burned. In the mirror, my reflection continued to breathe. His chest moved in a slow, rhythmic pace, deep and calm. I was staring at myself, but he wasn't staring at me. He was looking past my shoulder, looking at the door to my apartment. A slow, predatory smile began to spread across his face, an expression I wasn't making. My own face felt tight, paralyzed by a cold terror, but the man in the glass, he looked hungry. He raised a hand, not in sync with mine, which were clenched at my sides, and pressed his palm against the surface of the glass. The mirror didn't just reflect the light, it seemed to ripple like water around his fingertips. He leaned in close, his nose almost touching the barrier. His eyes, my eyes, were wide and bloodshot, fixed on me with a terrifying intensity. I backed away, tripping over a rug, but he didn't move. He stayed there, hand on the glass, watching me scramble like a cornered animal. He wasn't a reflection anymore. He was a tenant, and he was tired of being inside. I lost my mind. I grabbed the heavy brass lamp from the nightstand and swung it with everything I had. I wanted to shatter the illusion, to break the world into 1,000 harmless shards. The lamp struck the center of the mirror with a deafening thud, but the glass didn't crack. It didn't even vibrate. It felt like hitting a wall of dense, cold meat. The brass lamp simply sank an inch into the surface and then fell to the floor with a dull clatter. The reflection didn't flinch. Instead, he reached out. His hand didn't hit the glass. It passed through it. The surface turned into a dark, viscous liquid, swirling around his wrist like black oil. Before I could scream, his fingers, cold as absolute zero, wrapped around my throat. I was pulled forward, my face slammed against the mirror. But I didn't hit a hard surface. I hit a veil of freezing mist. I struggled, kicking and clawing at the air, but his strength was monumental. He wasn't just pulling me, he was merging with me. We were two versions of the same soul fighting for a single point of exit. The room behind me, my room, my life, began to dim, the colors draining into a gray, muted static. The room inside the mirror, however, was becoming vivid. I could smell the old wood, see the dust motes dancing in a light that wasn't there. He pulled harder, and I felt my consciousness begin to stretch, like skin being pulled too thin over bone. There was a sound like a vacuum seal breaking, a wet, sickening pop. Suddenly, the cold was gone, but so was the warmth. I was standing in the bedroom, but everything was reversed. The clock on the wall was backwards. The text on my discarded mail was a jumble of mirror writing. I rushed to the glass and slammed my fists against it. It was solid, harder than diamond. On the other side, he stood up. He smoothed out his shirt, my shirt. He picked up the brass lamp and set it back on the nightstand. He looked at me through the glass, his expression one of mild, polite pity. He leaned in and whispered, the sound vibrating through the barrier like a distant hum. "Thank you for the room," he said. He turned around and walked out of the bedroom, switching off the light. I'm still here. I'm still screaming, but there's no air to carry the sound. I watch him live my life. I watch him sleep in my bed, and sometimes I see him looking at other mirrors, planning his next move. You should be careful when you get ready for bed tonight. When you look in the mirror to brush your teeth or wash your face, look closely at your eyes. Are you sure they moved when yours did? Go ahead, check your reflection. I'll wait, but if he's still smiling after you've stopped, don't let him touch the glass.